All right, day 67, we are in Matthew 27, verse 27 through 44. Give it a read. It's a dark passage. Really think about it. Realize that this is what happened, that these are the things that Jesus went through because he loved you and because he wanted to provide salvation for you. So read it slow. Let it sink in. Think about the imagery here. And we'll come back and talk about it. So at this point, Rome is not going to quickly put Jesus to death. Death sentences in Rome, especially those that are crucifixion, were not designed to quickly or humanely put someone to death. They were designed to humiliate, to torture, to try to bring in as many onlookers as possible so that the general population would be afraid to do whatever thing the crucified person had done. And so it was a way to control the minds and the hearts and the actions of people. And so crucifixion, it's not designed to kill someone quickly. Instead, it was designed to humiliate the person, to torture them, to cause excruciating pain, and to prolong their suffering for as long as possible, sometimes even days. Before he was even led to the hill to be crucified on, Jesus was taken by the soldiers, and they placed a crown of thorns on his head. Now, any of you that have ever been stuck with a thorn or cut by a thorn or scraped by thorns knows how painful it is as the sharp edges of a thorn rips your skin and begins to cause bleeding. They begin mocking him as a defeated king. Then they do one of the most insulting things, I think, that you can do to a person, which is to spit upon them, because it dehumanizes them. Then at this point, they begin to beat him before they lead him off to be crucified. And at this point, Jesus, he's already been whipped and beaten. The other gospel accounts tell us that he's basically been whipped to the point of being barely recognizable. The type of whips that Rome would use had multiple strands on it, and on these strands they would put things like glass and metal and stones and these things, so that not only did the whip cause pain, but it tore at the flesh, and not just the surface of the flesh, but it would rip the back open, and the back would burst open. Sometimes you could see down to the bone because the muscles and the ligaments were torn away from the skeleton. And so, this would of course cause prolific bleeding. Jesus would have bled profusely at this point and been very weak from both the blood loss and the dehydration that came from it. And so he couldn't even carry his own cross. We're told that another had to carry it for him. And so as they get him to the hill, the crucifixion process begins. And as bad as everything has been before, it's just going to get worse at this point. The nails, a lot of times in popular culture, you see the nail scars driven in this part of the hand. But from bones recovered from Roman crucifixions, they actually weren't put here. This area wouldn't support the weight of the body. It would just tear through and I guess go between your joints there and the skin in your finger. You would just get ripped off the cross. Instead, they put it between the two bones here. Go ahead and feel on your hands right there. You see there's a bone on either side and a soft place in the middle. Well, that soft place in the middle, it holds blood vessels that go into your hand, and it also holds the nerve centers that control all the nerves that let you feel so well with your hands, and it runs all the way up into the arm and into the spinal column and up to the brain. And from what I've read from medical professionals, having that nerve severed is one of the worst pains anyone could imagine. They describe it as a searing, burning, horrendous pain that just almost overcomes your entire body. And so crucifixion was designed to slowly suffocate you. It wasn't meant to make you bleed out and die. It wasn't meant to kill you any other way. It was meant to suffocate you, because as you're up there on the cross, as your body weight's pulling down and putting pressure on your chest, it makes it really hard to breathe. You can't take full breaths. Maybe can't breathe at all under all of that weight. And so the person, they would have to pull up, and all the pressure would go onto the wrists, onto the nails, onto the nerves. And so it just created this cycle where you would either suffocate or you would have to pull yourself up on the nails and torture yourself in that way. And so, I guess you would think, well, I'd rather suffocate, but unfortunately our body's fight or flight instinct doesn't allow us just to suffocate if there's anything that we can do to stop it. And so as the person would almost be passed out, they would instinctively pull up again and then start the whole process over. It's horrible to think about, honestly. Eventually the person being crucified would become so weak that they would suffocate. They wouldn't be able to pull themselves up anymore, and finally the living nightmare would be over. And as we continue reading in this, we see that the insults, they didn't stop while he was up on the cross. If anything, they get a lot worse. And it wasn't just the soldiers. It says it's the religious leaders, the priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders are cursing Jesus and insulting him as he's up on the cross. I mean, just to give you a picture of how insane this is, that their hearts are this cold, that their hearts are this hardened, and that they are this evil. I mean, imagine Charlie and I going to an execution and cursing at the person and hurling insults. You guys would not think of us the same ever again. I hope you would drive us out of the church if we ever did this kind of thing. And yet this is what the religious leaders of Israel were doing to Jesus. Now tomorrow we're going to read Jesus' last words, the ones that come just moments before his life fades away. And then we'll see what comes next.